Unsolicited advice.
What you whispering for? Yo, what's unsolicited advice? Take it or leave it. Hot button topic time. So this one's a touchy subject for some. For me, it's pretty simple because I don't have a horse in a race about it really. But I always feel like you have to educate yourself before you make decisions. And certain things may take time before you should pull the trigger on it. But on this video, we're going to talk about child sexual orientation or child gender assignments. What a child, if a child is allowed to choose it, and maybe at what age. So, let's talk about what influences it. So genetics. Some people say genetics. Some people say hormones. And this is in the womb. While they're still in the womb, hormones, brain development can play a role in sexual orientation. Identical twins are more likely to share the same sexual orientation than fraternal twins. Things like that. They've done so many things, research and whatnot. But if you're just talking about just regular children, some of them may feel affection for the opposite sex without being taught, about what's right or what's wrong in certain people's eyes, I guess. But children can feel affection for the same sex organically and just not understand, what those feelings are. So those feelings usually emerge gradually, not suddenly. A lot of it is due to one single outside influence. So take for instance, let's say it's a young boy, and he's, maybe 4 or 5, but he's grown up in a house full of women. He's grown up around. Let's say he's got 2 sisters. He's got his mom. Let's say his aunties are always coming around. Let's say he's got like 3 aunties. His grandmother, Let's say his grandfather passed away. Let's say his dad is a deadbeat. He is heavily influenced by females because that's all he's been around. And it's some boys are just boys. They grew up and they just were born a natural boy. It doesn't matter if there's women or guys around. They have that built-in testosterone in them from birth. They're just going to be boys. But you have some boys that are heavily influenced by their surroundings. So young boys that are like, let's just say 4 or 5, maybe even 3, if they're used to being around females, they're going to pick up those traits, sometimes unwillingly. Like, you remember how your mom or your grandmama or whoever say, boy, take your hands off your hips. Things like that. Stop rolling your eyes like that. Stop sucking your teeth. Stop being in our conversation. Stop twisting. Why are you twisting like that? That right there already tells you that he doesn't mean to do it, but he's just picking up on what he sees because he's still learning. He's thinking that this is what he's supposed to do. He's influenced. He's influenced by you. So, you have to look at things like that. That's that natural emotional development. So, you gotta look at stuff like that. Now, LGBTQ representation, like if you represent them or you say, hey, I support them, that doesn't make you gay. You're just supporting something. You're saying that I believe people should, support this or I represent this. So, if you have gay parents or siblings or friends, that doesn't make you gay. Abuse or trauma, that doesn't necessarily make you gay. That's something else. So if somebody's been abused their whole life or dealt with a bunch of trauma their whole life, and they're doing certain things that are deemed gay, that is something else. So that's a whole nother conversation. You don't just say, oh, are you gay? Not necessarily. Or something is forced upon them that they didn't ask for. um, that which comes with sexual abuse or sexual trauma. Um, Certain parenting styles, or lack of traditional gender roles, that doesn't make you gay. But like I said earlier, there's certain things that your child will start doing because of these things that will make you say, hey, where'd they pick that up at? Or why are they doing that? Sometimes, it's just you're a product of your surroundings. So there's no evidence that seeing or knowing LGBTQ people turns anyone gay. Just because if somebody's left-handed, doesn't make somebody left-handed. If I see somebody left-handed, that doesn't make, someone left-handed. So it is what it is. But and then a lot of times, let's talk about the kids. Why they may think or say that they're gay. They might be curious or experiencing with their identity. So like they may say like, oh, they're trying to figure out what it is. Like right now, you see it everywhere. So some of them are just playing a little game because it's popular and it's trending. They see it on TikTok or whatever. So they're not necessarily gay. They're just doing something that's trending. They may feel different, but not have the language to describe it. Or they may genuinely be discovering an earlier sense of who they're attracted to. They may not know. They just know there's something going on. So, in their mind, they might think that they are, but they don't know yet. A lot of them don't know yet. But it's all part of the healthy emotions. And, when you're trying to identify where your development is going. So what you could do as an adult or just as a parent, if you see this in your child, just try to listen without judgment. Avoid assuming or labeling too early. Provide a safe space where, like I said, your kid can come to you and talk to you about it. Or they can explore who they are without feeling shame. Now, I say that, but you just have to be careful about what age. And I know with some people, it doesn't matter if they feel this way, they feel this way. I don't care if they 3 years old. No, you have to give certain things time. That's why I said you just listen. You try to avoid assuming or labeling them too early. You just want to give information, give understanding. When they start asking why this or why that, that's the perfect time to give them understanding first, so they don't just jump to it. So for kids right now, though, just in this society, because I'm going to break this down real quick and then I'm going to let y'all go, just so y'all know. As of right now, 12% of elementary school kids are gay or experiencing feelings of being gay. Same thing with middle schoolers, but it's at 26% for middle schoolers. High schoolers, 24%. So it's higher than it used to be. When I was in school, you might have seen one, maybe two people that were gay at school, or maybe denying that they were gay. But because back in the day, they'd either, they do little things or whatever, and you'd be like, yeah. Some of them just was out and out, didn't care. But it's it's very rare you would see them. Either the school system or the kids would shun them and make them afraid to come to school, or some of them may have already been out there doing stuff at an early age and they just decided school wasn't for them. But you're going to see a couple of them maybe. But nowadays it's everywhere. They might act straight one day and the next day they come in a whole different person. But they're still your child, and it's never a wrong time to talk about stuff, so they can get better educated. You never want to send your kid out into the world without education, right? It's the same thing with LGBTQ, or a kid that may feel like they're dealing with homosexuality. You want to tell You want to give them every information, every type of instrument that they need to learn it before they decide if it's something they want to do. Now, don't be one of these parents that are telling a 5 or 6 year old that they can do it, because they don't know yet. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, but I would say if they're in the single digits and even in the lower double digits, I'd be very careful about letting it be okay just yet. They still need information. You know, they still need to have conversations with you. You know, certain things need to go on before they make those type of decisions, because so they can understand everything that comes with it. But just wanted to give y'all that was on my mind. I've been noticing it a lot, especially with the young kids nowadays. So I thought I'd talk about it because I felt like if I talked about it, that it would give y'all a better way to talk to your kids about it. I think it would be healthy, especially nowadays, because society accepts it more now. But a lot of kids are playing games and they don't understand what comes with being LGBTQ. You know, you need to understand everything that comes with that. You know, you don't just jump into something. You know, you need to know all the facts and stuff. But like I always say, that's just my unsolicited advice. You take it or leave it.